Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Touchline Table Talks. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, alongside you guys. The World Cup has been electric, and as you can see by the title of the video, the thumbnail, and if you just haven't been living under a rock, Paraguay shocked the world by eliminating Germany. Matt, we're just going to get right into this one. This is one of the greatest upsets that you will see in World Cup history, considering what countries have historically within this tournament. We know our good friend Roberto Rojas, who joined us a couple of episodes ago to discuss Paraguay and their chances at this World Cup, and how we were telling everyone, even despite USA's dominance against them, this isn't a bad side. They've done well in qualifying, and they grind this one out. Regardless of what you think of that VAR situation, they went up. They were nails. They gave Germany plenty of difficulties throughout the entire match. And it goes down to penalties with Paraguay winning in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Matt, first and foremost, I mean, were you stunned or not? Because regardless of if we knew this wasn't the strongest German team, it is still stunning to just see a result like this happen.
Absolutely, it was stunned. I mean, round of 32, you expect Germany as one of the teams, the powers of football, to make a decent run, at least get into the round of 16. We know how the new format, the abundance of teams can make things a little more challenging. And we know that they really weren't tested all that much, if at all, in their group phase. Whereas with Paraguay, they faced a very difficult uphill battle after the defeat to USA, which I think people casted them as being a team that maybe wasn't all that great, or, you know, it was more that match against USA was more indicative of, well, Paraguay ain't really that strong. USA is not as good as they maybe people are perceiving them to be. And I think it's massive credit to Paraguay, because even before the penalties, which that was cinema, the meme, the absolute cinema, that is cinema. That was tremendous to watch as a neutral. Right. Paraguay defended extremely well this entire match.
Gustavo Gomez, Milan.
Gustavo Gomez, shout out to the former Milan great, jokingly, right? He played at Milan. I think the one thing that's very interesting about this, and I don't know if maybe you saw more of these tweets than I did, but how deflating I think it maybe was that Taz's goal was ruled off. I know that was a huge talking point with the goalkeeper. And then since then, I think Paraguay were of the mindset, we have another lifeline here. Just get the penalties. Right. Get the penalties. And anything can happen.
It's like that worst moment of you conceding in stoppage time after you had grinded all match long.
Yep.
You have conceded the lead, and now you're in extra time. For me, what came down to this with Germany and what they really lack, and I know some people might have thought that this was your typical German team that's 7-1 against Curacao. What it ultimately was is they do not have dogs. They do not have killers. The way that they play, and Havertz is probably their most clinical finisher, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's not a good thing.
He's not that.
Musiala is still not the same player that he was. Probably only had the good penalty that Germany had taken. Nicolas Woltemade, I'm telling you right now, that was the shittiest penalty I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that he missed it, it was so, to me, football won. The sport won. Because we cannot have these woke penalties being taken constantly. Like, you tweeted it, run up and rip it. Enough of this nonsense. Like, you're stalling. You become more predictable when you walk up that way. And it was no different than when Woltemade took that. And again, Paraguay, the way they take penalty kicks in South America, if you ever watch Copa America and all those situations, they get it. They understand how to get into the opponent's heads. Everyone's just like, oh, it's left, it's right. Yeah. You slot it here and this. No, it's gamesmanship. You're seeing Leon Goretzka refusing to take a penalty, and Joshua Kimmich saying to him, come on. Your leaders need to step up. There's that mental fortitude that you need to take to the next step. It seems that Germany is lacking that severely, and Paraguay did not. Because Paraguay, one of their best national teams in over a decade. Obviously, they made the 2010 World Cup. It's just that resolve that they had going up against big nations in qualifying, getting positive results, carrying that over despite having a poor group stage, and getting into the round of 16 and knocking out Germany. There's nothing better than that. And to see a nation that rarely has that much success up against arguably the second most successful nation in the sport when it comes to winning. I mean, that moments like that are great because we see our good friend Roberto Rojas, like people like him are crying in the crowd. this was one of the best knockout days that I've ever seen, and we can get into the other stuff. But any final comments with Paraguay and Germany?
It was special. It was special to see, that sort of underdog come and rise to the occasion
Right.
and topple and overthrow a power, right? And we know this isn't the same strong Germany that won the World Cup years ago. We know that
Right.
there are cracks in that armor, right? This is a team that, has a lot of quality on paper. They play at big clubs, but international football is a little bit different than club football. There's the pressure, the weight of wearing your nation's shirt. And I think the way that you saw them sort of play out in penalties, I think it really makes you wonder, okay, who's next? Who's the next big nation to get overthrown and bounced in the round of 32? But I think it really also makes it very fascinating as well, is how do defeats like this for Germany and wins like this for Paraguay change the sort of complexion and potential outcomes that follow throughout the knockout stages, which I think is going to be very, very key, because we know how people look at the paths of certain nations.
That's why I said it was wide open the entire
Yeah.
time. There isn't a nation for me. It's been France. If they stand above anyone, France is just actually insane. They might end up being like that.
They're
Team
ascending
like,
right now too.
I think the way France will be viewed is that how did anyone pick against them when this tournament is done? I think it would be one of those things. We'll see. There's other good teams. One of arguably so like this match between Brazil and Japan. Everybody knew Japan had a shot in this one. They take the lead. Don't want to even speak about the person that scored that goal for them. Casemiro looked like he was laboring trying to get back on that counter. Japan goes up 1-0. And we've seen Japan in knockout stages, in the World Cup before, and this should come to no surprise of anybody. However, is it not Carlo Ancelotti enough for you to see this sort of comeback, the nonchalantness after scoring? Gabriel Martinelli scores the winning goal. Brazil could have had multiple. They could have had 4 in this one. They hit the post, got pretty unlucky. And Science Suzuki, by the way, I'm glad the world sees how overrated a goalkeeper he is, because my God, I'm seeing quotes for like 30 plus million for this guy. He hasn't been that good at Parma. I don't know why everyone thought he was a shoo-in to be great with Japan. Comeback win for Brazil. Casemiro scores the equalizer. We get Endrick on a little bit earlier of a feature because Lucas Paqueta was injured. Gabriel Martinelli comes in. He scores the winner. Huge moment. Brazil survive and advance. And ultimately, with the way this Brazilian squad is, it's not the most cohesive unit. They're going to get by with their individuals because they still have individual talent. Ancelotti is the man to right the ship, as we all know. He's a legendary manager. Brazil beating Japan was not surprising, but what made this day so incredible was the comeback and the stoppage time winner, because we got 2 penalty shootouts and a stoppage time winner in the 3 games that we witnessed. This was great. Martinelli has a big moment for himself. I mean, what do you make of this one? I wasn't shocked that this was like a rock fight, that this went down to the death. These are kind of more equal teams than people would like to admit.
Yeah.
But Brazil comes out on top with their talent. There's just, when they can sub on guys like Martinelli, Japan doesn't really have many answers towards the end of it.
I think this was such a tone-setting opener for the round of 32 for that slate of games yesterday, where you look at it and then it kind of passed over to the Germany game, and then you saw what happened there, and then you look at the Netherlands-Morocco game, which is fantastic, which we'll talk about. I think you look at this Brazil team, and I think you hit it on the head that there's a lot of quality in here, but individually, you think that's how Brazil is going to go far in this competition. Right. And I think that, look, you saw what they did in the opening game with Vini getting the goal. Didn't really look like a strong Brazil. You've seen how they sort of navigated up into this point. It's those moments, and sometimes teams can ride those moments and ride those top players to glory. It's definitely possible. Yeah. But I think that the way you look at how, I guess, not cohesive, well-bonded this Brazil team is a bit worrying. And I think that credit to Japan, and this is a Japan team that I think a lot of people overlooked maybe coming into this. On paper, you look and say Brazil, they're the clear-cut favorites, and they were the favorites. Even when Brazil were trailing, I believe they were still a favorite, I think minus 250 to actually still beat Japan and move on, which speaks to how many people were maybe looking at Japan as a team that was much inferior and how dominant Brazil was, which I don't think is, accurate. But
Right.
they move on. They're in the round of 16. Maybe this is a galvanizing moment for Brazil as a nation, as a team. And look, you saw Ancelotti's reaction. I mean, he realizes they probably made this a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. But I'm wondering what the tone in that changing room is, the message that he is sending to those players, because he knows it's only going to get more difficult from this point forward. So we'll have to wait and see. But for now, they can rejoice, they can regroup, and we'll have to wait and see what the next phases of the knockouts look like for them.
Yeah, Paqueta, Wesley, and Rafinha all injured or out for Brazil.
Yeah.
I mean, those are still significant losses. Not many nations have had. They could survive it though. So really good match in terms of the second half and the drama of it all. In between the 90 minutes, it was kind of like, ooh, okay. But now moving on to this one, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I tweeted out Morocco on penalties early in the day. Matt, I never bought into this Netherlands hype. I don't get it. I did not understand it, much like I am about Brazil and Germany too. I don't buy into these big nations. I just haven't. Brazil is the best of the bunch I mentioned. Morocco's a semi-finalist in the past World Cup. Depending on who you ask, they're AFCON champions. For me, they're not. They're still incredible. They played so well in the group stage. That draw against Brazil, they were clearly the better team, in my opinion. Nobody should have been shocked by this. They just whiffed on their chances. They had multiple chances in this one. There was the incredible moment of Cody Gakpo scoring that goal that put the Netherlands ahead, and the devastating time that he's had. And I'm not one to highlight on that kind of stuff, but I mean, just the willpower to just be out there is tremendous. And for him to get that moment only for it to end up this way is shocking. Morocco are just gamers. And this is a team that can win this tournament, by the way. That nobody should be thrown off by this. Ultimately, Matt, where I lie with this one was the mental fortitude, again, in penalties.
Yeah.
And this was a bad penalty shootout. Koop Miners had the best one, buried it first time. I'm sitting there saying to myself, that Bono hand save with his left arm was one of the best saves you'll see in a penalty shootout. Morocco deservedly through. They are a threat. It doesn't matter who you're talking about. They can beat anyone in this tournament. Morocco shouldn't be shocking the world anymore. This is their standard. But, man, are you still amazed by it? Because this is like a team and a nation that has really announced itself on the global stage now. Because, sometimes there's always those people who are like, it was a fluke. This ain't no fluke. They're legit. They have tons of tremendous players. And to think they could have had Lamine Yamal as well. So your thoughts on Morocco? I mean, this penalty shootout, devastating moment for Van Dijk too, gets dunked on for the game-tying goal by Jop right at the start of stoppage. Oof.
I think what we're seeing from Morocco over these two World Cups, 2022, they're deeper, and as you mentioned, and now making the run into the round of 16, shouldn't surprise anybody. And it shouldn't surprise anybody on the amount of talent, the abundance of quality that is in Africa. And I think Morocco, what they did in the prior World Cup, I think maybe people kind of said, well, they'll regress a little bit. They'll regress to the mean. Maybe they're a team that round of 32, they come up against other teams and they 4 years later, they're probably they fizzle out. And I think that what makes Morocco a very difficult out for anybody, or a difficult opposition for anybody that comes up against them, is they have this healthy blend and balance between being a team that can be star dependent when they need to. They can rely on a Sabari. They can rely on a Hakimi, Bouadi, the 18-year-old wonder kid in the midfield at Lille. He's been fantastic, probably
Beast.
The best young player of this tournament, I think, based on what I've seen so far. So they can play the game where their big star shows up and gets them over the edge, but they can also play that tight-knit game where it's the collective that gets them over the hump, that gets them to their next round. And I think that what makes them so special, too, is the fact that they were trailing for that until the very end. They got a very, very late goal in the 90th minute. I was almost snoozing, and I saw the goal go across. I'm like, this Morocco team has no quit in them. Yeah. And I think that is going to be very frightening for anyone that comes up against them, because I think that they're a team that will still have skeptics. People they'll come up against a power and people say, no, well, we're not quite sold on Morocco. Right. but you can't sleep on a team like this, especially that is able to do what they've done over these past 2 World Cups. And I will say this too.
Okay.
It was mentioned on the broadcast prior to the kickoff. I believe it was Rafael van der Vaart, former Netherlands player, played across multiple clubs in his European career. He basically said something as Morocco is the nation. I'm paraphrasing here. You can fact check me on this. Morocco is the nation of players that couldn't hack it with the Netherlands team, that were not good enough to play for the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's been yeah.
Man, did that probably feel electric for them to win that game yesterday. And then, of course, you saw Ronald Koeman,
they were flooding the streets of Amsterdam at 6 a.m.
Yeah,
the Moroccans.
Yeah. So again,
it's just funny, and there's been articles and stories about this on how Morocco has been trying to take players that would fit into their mold and system, and like, hey, you could play here. Brahim Diaz could have played for Spain. Yeah. Go to Spain. Go to Morocco. Excuse me. As Santangelo gets his phone call, ignoring that, everybody. They're just terrifying. They're very athletic, great technical abilities as well. They can handle this weather, by the way, which is a very important thing.
Yeah.
It is a very important advantage because the weather over here, people like to downplay what the weather is like in the States. I'm like, oh, can you do it in a cold, windy night? So can you do it in a humid 90-degree night in New Jersey? Can you do that? Can you handle that? Doesn't seem like the European teams like it too much. And again, the statistic that everybody knows, only South American teams have won the World Cup in the Americas. There's something to it, just a little bit. Morocco's fantastic. There's likely, if France ends up taking care of business, they beat Sweden and Paraguay, and then Morocco takes care of business against Canada, that's a quarterfinal matchup. It's a rematch of what we saw prior to in the 2022 World Cup. That's cinema. I want that. We'll see. Canada will not beat Morocco playing the way Canada did against South Africa. They don't have a chance. It could be bad. But you know what? You survive, you advance, you give yourself an opportunity. We'll see what happens there. But we are all clearly seeing and wanting a Morocco-France rematch in the next round. But we're heading on over to the final topic of the day, guys. Again, if you have not liked the video already, please do so. USA versus Bosnia. There's been shit talking by professionals that should be professionals and not side talk interviews about where Bosnia is on a map and the lack of geographical awareness of your average American. However, this one's tough. And anyone thinking that this is a layup, you are most likely not Italian American. I think the people who are on alert most for this match are Italian Americans. Like you and myself, who have rooting interest for both the USA national team and Italy. Bosnia is no joke. They're not slouches. They're going to be sitting deeper than people would like to admit or notice. When they face off against them, Bosnia will have shot creation. They will have chances and opportunities to score. Team USA needs to be healthy. I'm not buying into this notion of like, oh, look how they played against Turkey. 9 changes, guys. 9 changes. Enough of that. You are casual if you were harping and lamenting on that far too much. Stop. Take a step back. What the real concern should be is that Bosnia is a good side. Yeah. And they have plenty of talent that could beat the United States. And the United States probably should be favored for a multitude of reasons. They've been playing better. They're at home. That's kind of where I'm at. And I think on paper, their top talent is a little bit better than Bosnia's. However, Bosnia, again, we say this time and time again, they're no joke. They shouldn't be taken as a joke. They didn't have the greatest of groups with Switzerland, Canada being a host nation. It's difficult. I think they were, if not one of the best third-place team that you could find in this tournament. There's a lot of them. There's a good amount of them. So for you, Matt, heading into this one, your level of concern on a scale of 1 to 10 would be what for the United States?
For the United States, I would probably say 5.5, 6. And the reason why I say that is I like the USA talent in attack, in the midfield, certain elements of the defense. Man. What scares me is more how they're going to be able to cope with the physicality and physical profiles that Bosnia will throw their way. We saw in that playoff with Italy how they'll spam crosses in the box. They'll use those 6'3", 6'4" profiles, and they'll play that game. They'll play the dirty physical game and play the type of football that might be ugly, but that will get the job done in difficult environments. Unlike in that playoff, however, they're coming into the USA game here as the roadside. Of course, Bosnians will travel well. It's a World Cup. They're going to show up and do their best to push their team to victory. But I think that's the concern I've had in the three matches I've seen from USA is they've played in positions where they've been ahead. So when you play ahead, it's a little bit different. When USA are in those matches where it's 0-0, maybe 60th, 65th minute, how does that defense cope with the physicality, the aerial threats that Bosnia is going to throw their way? That's my fear. If it gets into the deep parts of the game and it's level, I'm getting a little bit concerned that probably the weakest part of this USA team is going to show it ahead, and it may be a little bit difficult for them to deal with Bosnia. But I do think they will get the job done, and I do think that the quality will prevail. Although, again, of course, people sleeping on this Bosnia team because of maybe what you saw in the group phase,
it's nonsense. It's knockout football. Knockout football is something that you can't take for granted. These games will be tight. They'll be close. You will see nations that you thought had no opportunity of doing anything coming out on the other side. Listen, I have talked about it time and time again. My major concern with Team USA is the defense and goalkeeping.
Yep.
I'm still not sold. Chris Richards has been awesome. Freeman had a good performance against Australia. Tim Ream, I respect the hell out of his career. I respect what he's done for the U.S. men's national team. It's not 2018, brother. It's not, 10 years ago where you could move better. He worries me a little bit on transitional phases, which Bosnia will be hitting the U.S. with. And my main concern is, how do the United States and their midfield handle the Bosnians? This is where I think an absence of Johnny Cardozo is huge for the United States. He would have been their best midfielder, in my opinion, or one of. Tyler Adams has been shaky at times. The competition's only going to get more fierce in this tournament, and especially in the midfield positions. Team USA has deserved all the flowers it's gotten for their performances in their first 3 games. Ultimately, we know this. They have to win a knockout game. You have to get to the round of 32. The round of 16 is what the standard should be for Team USA in this tournament. If they make it past the round of 16, it's a huge success. Round of 32 exit is disappointing, and it could be deemed a failure by many. I'm at a 7.5. Unless Team USA puts on the full throttle offensively, they're dominating possession, they have to put away their chances. If Team USA comes in there and gets at least 2 goals, I will feel much better about this. However, if they only manage the 1 and they start to miss those chances, that will pile up the pressure. And Bosnia would love for that to be a 1-goal match the longer that match goes on, because they know no matter what happens, the USA can be exposed, and especially at the back. That's my huge concern. How does Mauricio Pochettino combat that in the middle of the match tactically? Huge question marks in regards to that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are going to see Team USA have a rock fight to get in. I think that this could go to penalties, and anything can go there. That's my likelihood. Ultimately, I think Team USA advances against Bosnia, but by the skin of their teeth. Matt, I would assume, based on your scale, that Team USA advances to the round of 16?
Yeah, I think USA get over the line. I think they get the job done. And as I mentioned, I think that Bosnia is going to want to play to their strengths. They're not going to want to have an open game. That's not something they do. Edin Dzeko is not going to be running for 90 minutes back and forth. They want to play that physical side of the game. And I think the profiles they can throw at the USA could make it very difficult for the USA to break them down, right? USA has started very early in a lot of these games they've played so far, right? Paraguay, that got off and running, and now the game is almost open by force. Right. So I think that it's going to be very fascinating to see, does Bosnia play that sort of defensive counterattacking game where let's sit back, let's keep things tidy, and then try to play deep, play vertical. Dzeko's a great hold-up player. They got technical dribbling quality in those wide areas that can really cause trouble for Team USA. So it's going to be very, very fascinating for sure. But I do think USA will narrowly get over the line and defeat Bosnia.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. Tons of games kicking off, having a ton of fun, filming all this content. Again, guys, if you have not followed, liked, and subscribed to us on Apple and Spotify, please do so. Powered by the Cloud 10 Network. Give us 5 stars. Give us a review. Give us your predictions for USA versus Bosnia tomorrow. Give us your thoughts on yesterday's games in the World Cup. And today is also going to get spicy. For Matt Santangelo and me, Martino Puccio, we appreciate all you guys listening in, and we will see you next week.